There's always steps you can take to improve your relationships.
Sure, sometimes it's the simple things that you can do that make a big difference.
So why not do these things so that we can live longer and be healthier and get along?
It is fantastic to have you joining me for Next Level Health, brought to you by It Is Written. I'm John Bradshaw, and I am really glad that you are here. Taking your health to the next level is something almost anyone can do, and doing so was God's idea in the first place. God says that He wishes above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. You'll find that in 3 John verse 2. We know how important our health is. Health costs can be astronomical. Health insurance, or the lack thereof, can be a worry and a concern. Imagine if you could visit the doctor less and avoid a number of the diseases that we just sort of take for granted, living with them as though they're part of the family. Many illnesses simply don't have to loom over your life like a dark cloud. You can take your health to the next level. As we look at our next presentation, Enjoying Healthier Relationships, Cassidy Conley is going to find out what people think someone should look for in a spouse. Katie Castillo is going to be talking to 3 couples who've been married long enough that we might want to listen to what they have to say. One couple have been married for almost 50 years, 2 others more than 70. Eric Flickinger will be looking into what it is that makes relationships work. And I'll be talking with relationship experts, Dr. Willie and Elaine Oliver. Let's begin with Katie and some marriages that have stood the test of time.
Today, I will interview 3 couples that have been married for a very long time. I hope that through their knowledge, our viewers can find insightful information.
We have been married 71 years.
I will be married 50 years coming May 30 of this year.
In August, we will have been married 72 years.
A good relationship to start out means to match personalities as best as you can.
Okay, when you're looking for a mate, I think it would be important that you both have the same Christian faith.
Conflict is inevitable. If you're making God a priority in your life, it is going to temper it. It's not going to go away, but I think you have more tools that you need.
I have a philosophy that I learned over the years, that you don't go to bed at night, you don't turn that light off until you can say, I love you.
And people are so quick to get angry and just stay angry and get divorced. And if they'll just wait a while and step back, it'll go away. It's not like we never got angry with each other. We never do now, but we did when we were young.
There's a text in Philippians 4 that says, let your gentleness be known to all men. And I say to myself, that includes Chester.
I would say it's 99% of the success is communicating.
You have bad things, but you have happy things too. And you can't you can't let bad things ruin your life, ever.
I think it really has to do with knowing that there is a third and more supreme person that's involved in that relationship.
We always had Jesus with us in everything. Both of us were always committed to the Lord for everything.
It's good if when you're husband and wife can both work together in the kitchen, at least in some capacity. And I've been blessed with a husband who likes to work in the kitchen, and he does a lot to help me.
For me, the secret to a successful marriage, I think, is commitment. We were in the grocery store a few years ago, and this little girl was checking us out, and she said, asked us how long we'd been married. And when we told her, she said, oh, y'all must love each other a lot. And I said, honey, it's not about love, it's about commitment.
I think the secret really is, if you mean it when you say, I do, that means that you're committed.
And I never questioned that I was committed for life. There's certainly times when I was wishing things were different. But
like when my mother moved in with us for 13 years.
A commitment is a commitment, and that's it.
I haven't been easy to live with.
It's worth it to hang in there.
Katie, that was fun. It was inspiring too. As you think about that segment, what stands out to you?
Well, I think it's important to know that whether your relationship is just starting or you've been married for years, there's always steps you can take to improve your relationship.
Ah, very true. Any wisdom you took away from that? Something one of the couple said?
Well, Mrs. Caswell, she said that it's not all about love, that it's about commitment.
Ah, love and commitment. Yeah, really important. We might want to remember that. Maybe if everybody remembered that, world might be a different place. Okay, Cassidy Conley has been finding out what people think are the important qualities to look for in a spouse. Take a look at this.
Definitely transparency. That someone who you can lean on, someone who can support.
I look for honesty. I look for comedy. I look for trustworthiness.
Definitely someone who is like understanding of like how big emotional health does play into like a relationship.
So I'd like someone who's trying to help me through it versus like it's your own thing, you deal with it kind of thing.
We work together on certain things, not just one taking control all the time.
Someone I can trust for sure. That's the biggest thing for me in a relationship is trust and love and finding someone that you can be happy with.
Honesty, mainly. I mean, just, being able to relate to someone and likability, commonality.
Financial stability, slow to anger, good moral character.
Loyalty, trust, and intellect.
Someone who is strong for themselves. Because I feel like when it comes to relationships, you have to be secure within yourself to be secure within inside of a relationship.
Yeah, definitely somebody who loves the Lord and puts the Lord first. Somebody who's funny, can communicate well, honest, all the good stuff, sarcastic. I like that.
Someone who I know, who I can trust, who cares about me, who I can care about them and let me be who I am and not have to be worried about who I am to them.
Welcome back to Next Level Health. Here's Eric Flickinger. Eric, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, John. I talked with Dr. Alan Parker about relationships and learned a lot. Dr. Parker, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I wanted to ask you some questions about relationships. You have kind of a unique background. You are a pastor. You are a university professor. You do a lot of counseling of couples, especially premarital counseling. And you see a lot of people who are in a lot of different kinds of relationships. What are some keys that someone might be able to learn to improve their relationships, regardless of what kind of relationship they're in with someone else?
Well, what we know is that there are three key aspects of any relationship. And psychology has shown us that those are acceptance, genuineness, and empathy. Now, what happens with acceptance, that's how well you show warmth and acceptance towards another person. Genuineness has to do with your authenticity. Are you really who you say you are? And then empathy is, can you walk in the other person's shoes? Can you understand things from their perspective? So when you have acceptance, genuineness, and empathy, you're likely to have a thriving relationship. If any one of those are missing, that affects trust. And the breakdown of trust will ultimately damage the relationship.
So let's say that someone is in a relationship, whether it's a familial relationship or a relationship, a professional relationship with a colleague or a fellow student or even a romantic relationship, and something somewhere is broken down. How would you improve your empathy, or how would you improve one of the other elements that make a strong relationship?
So when you are dealing with a broken relationship, say a couple comes to me, I'm going to begin at a very basic level to help them to listen to each other, because the fact that they're not listening to each other is what is leading to the breakdown of acceptance, genuineness, and empathy. So I begin with listening. Then I teach them understanding. Understanding is, did I hear you right? Is this where you're coming from? Let me ask you a question about that, because I'm not sure I understood. And then finally, I teach them to validate. Validate says, I am going to affirm the feelings that you have. So I call this the love principle, but it's spelled L-U-V. Listen, understand, and validate. And when a person is interacting with someone else and they listen and they really tune in and they seek understanding, and then they validate that person's feelings, then that person is more likely to be accepting, genuine, and empathetic.
All right, now let's say that somebody is in a relationship that is not healthy. Something is very unbalanced and they're in the relationship, but they're afraid to leave. What are some signs that you're in a relationship that is unhealthy and you'd be better off not in that relationship?
Well, those are danger flags, red flags, sometimes we call them. If there is abuse taking place, you definitely want to seek safety. You want to get into a place where you are out of that abuse. Unfortunately, we know it often takes, for instance, an abused woman about 7 different attempts to leave before they finally get the courage to leave. So abuse, seek help, seek safety. If it's just dysfunctional, I would recommend going for counseling and seeing if there's a way to figure out why that relationship is dysfunctional. If you have somebody who's strongly manipulative and they have power over another person, it's not going to be easy to fix that without outside intervention, because only when someone else steps in and says, no, that was manipulative, or you were lying in that situation, they can confront them, then you can fix that. So I would say if there's lying, if there's manipulation, definitely seek help in that relationship. And you may have to leave that relationship because that might be the only way to find health. But if you're married, then I would say definitely seek counseling.
Dr. Parker, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate your insight on how to have healthier relationships.
Eric, great stuff. Thanks for that. That's good.
Sure. Sometimes it's the simple things that you can do that make a big difference in relationships.
If we remember those things, apply them to our lives, things will be a whole lot different. Thank you. In just a moment, more really important information about relationships with relationship experts, Dr. Willie and Elaine Oliver. Be right back.
More and more people are watching It Is Written TV. They're watching their favorite It Is Written programs, listening to inspiring sermon series, and much more. They're watching them here, and even here. See for yourself why people are turning to It Is Written TV to watch their favorite Christian programs live and on demand. Watch It Is Written TV for free anytime on Roku, Apple TV, and at itiswritten.tv.
Welcome back to Next Level Health. I am very glad to be able to introduce to you some very special guests. They happen to be the authors of this book, Hope for Today's Families. They are Dr. Willie and Elaine Oliver. They are relationship experts, and I'm glad to welcome you both here. Dr. Willie and Elaine, thank you for joining me on Next Level Health.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be with you.
Well, let's talk about the importance of relationships, particularly as they impact health. Now, I have some questions here that I want to bounce off you. And one of them is this. I'd like you to tell me why it is that relationships can have both a positive and a negative relationship or impact on our health. Why do relationships become important to health?
Well, you know, if we start from the beginning of time when God created us, He created us to be in relationship, first with Him and then with each other. And so we see from the Garden of Eden that He said it was not good for man to be alone. And so we take it that God intended for us to have this close relationship. And so relationships are very important because what they do is they increase positive hormones in our bodies. You know, we secrete oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. It also lifts the dopamine and the serotonin in our brain. And when we are strong mentally, it actually directly impacts our physical health.
Well, let me ask you this. What are some physical challenges, some health concerns that can arise out of having less than stellar relationships? What are some of the effects that we see?
Well, here's what we do know, that couples who have healthier marriages and happier marriages do better They have better health, they live longer, they are happier, they get along better. And in fact, they go to the doctor way less than couples who do not, because those endorphins that are created when there's positive interaction between two individuals actually boost our immune system that get debilitated otherwise when we are having lots of friction and we are unhappy with each other. Those actually dive. They go south, and then we are more prone to getting ill, to becoming ill, colds and the rest of it.
Now, right now, people are dealing with isolation like we've never dealt with before. And here's what the research tells us, the literature tells us. This won't be a surprise to you. Social isolation is linked to inflammation and hypertension. In addition, one study reported that social isolation could be riskier. This is fascinating to me. Social isolation could be riskier than clinical factors like diabetes when it comes to hypertension, high blood pressure. Tell me about that. Why is that?
Yeah, you know what's fascinating about that research, we are familiar with it as well, is that when we're socially isolated, we're actually more sedentary, right? When we are involved socially, we're visiting our friends, we're going out, we're going to eat out together, and we're going to church and all of these things.
We're playing sports.
Playing sports, we're moving more. This isolation creates this setting. We're sitting in front of a screen all day, and it's increasing the inflammation in our bodies. What we don't realize is how detrimental inflammation is to us, because it creates all kinds of other stressors on the body. So even inflammation in the knees, right? So it's more difficult for you to move. And you can see how then there would be a snowball effect. So something like people who suffer from hypertension, inflammation is the last thing you want to increase in your body, because it will restrict your blood vessels. So I'm not a doctor, and maybe some medical persons can talk more about that, but we'll just break it down. So what we have to learn to do, because we want to give some tips on how we can avoid that, is we can go out for a walk during the day. If you live alone, walk through your neighborhood, put your mask up, be socially distant. But if you walk in a park and you see other people, or you walk through your neighborhood, one of the things that we've been doing during COVID is to go visit with friends and just, tell them we call them the drive-bys. We get up on Saturday mornings and we say, we're gonna come by and just do a drive-by this afternoon to your home, and you can just wave at us. And so the socializing really helps us to reduce inflammation in our body. It also is good for our emotional well-being.
Now, if I understand this correctly, and I'm sure you understand this correctly, stress from a lousy relationship. Now this, where we're going here might answer questions for a lot of people, can actually have a deleterious effect on the immune system. So you're in a toxic relationship, you're not getting on with people, maybe it's a bad marriage, maybe it's even a business relationship, whatever that might be. That can damage your immune system, correct? And the results can be surely dramatic. Tell me a little more about that.
Well, if you're not getting along and you are perhaps upset at someone, this could be in marriage, this could be in business, neighbors, what happens is that there is tension. You become tense, and you restrict your blood vessels and the functioning, the proper functioning of your body, so that with all this tension comes stress, and with this stress comes the strictures of all kinds of biological functions that need to take place. And when they don't take place, then we suffer that additional stress. And with stress comes cancer and so many other things. In fact, if you spoke to an oncologist, he or she will tell you that most of us have cancer cells in our bodies, but they don't become active until that immune system goes down. And that immune system goes down when we have bad relationships. So we want to have good relationships. In fact, even in Scripture, the Bible tells us in the book of Proverbs 17:22, a wonderful heart, a cheerful heart, buoys up the spirit, but when you're upset, it dries up the bones. So even the Bible speaks about it because it knows that physical health and emotional health go together, and we need to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. I think this is kind of an open-ended question. Being in a relationship doesn't always translate to health benefits, correct?
That's
so if that's the case, what do we ought to be doing about our relationships? What kind of relationships should we foster? How do we go about that?
Yeah, you know what? I would say that if we think about the health benefits of good relationships, why would we not work on our relationships? And so one of the things that we have used in our relationship this past year are the fruit of the Spirit. And right there, you have a jam-packed, it's jam-packed with tips on how to have good relationships, and it really works. What is it? Love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, faithfulness, goodness, and self-control, right? If we can exercise those things in our relationships every day, and if we stop and think that by doing just one of these fruit, like I say, eating one of these fruit, picking a fruit,
behaving the fruit, living the fruit every day.
Yeah, then we could have healthier relationships, and we could actually be healthier ourselves. If we don't do it, it's actually like putting poison in your drinking water. So why not? I mean, water is life. So why not do these things so that we can live longer and be healthier and get along better and nurture these relationships which are good for us?
Let me ask you one more question, and that's this. It would come as no surprise to either of us if I made this very general statement and said most people have bad relationships in their life on some level. I think we would probably agree that many people find that their lives are filled with terrible relationships for one reason or another. What would either of you say, or maybe both of you say to someone who looks at their life and says, I'm just snowed under here with a whole lot of bad relationships? What can they do about taking concrete positive steps to forming better and therefore more healthy relationships?
I would say two things. One, speak to the people that you're not getting along with and perhaps apologize, ask for forgiveness. As far as it depends on me, the Bible says, live at peace with everyone. But it has to begin with me. I have to make that choice. So that's a choice you can make. The second choice you can make is learn how to have better conversations, how to interact better. We love that text in the book of James chapter 1 and verse 19 that says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to be angry. Most times we're interested in what we have to say rather than in what the other person has to say. You know, good relationships are all about love, and God is love, the Bible tells us, and loving means giving, for God so loved the world that he gave. When we're looking for what we can get rather than what we can give, we're going in the opposite direction. If we ought to live the joyful lives that God wants us to live, we need to start asking ourselves, what can I give? What can I do to foster better relationships with the people in my life? So those two things, forgiveness and learning to communicate better. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to be angry. You can do that. Anyone can do it if they determine and choose that option every single day of their lives.
Fantastic. I can't thank you both enough. It's been so helpful. Dr. Willie and Elaine Oliver, thank you so much for being part of Next Level Health.
Thank you for having us.
It's good to be with you.
And I want to encourage you to get their book. It's fantastic. It's Hope for Today's Families, Dr. Willie and Elaine Oliver, where you'll find these principles and more, and it will help you to take your life to the next level. Go to nextlevelhealth.life, click on resources, and that's where you will find an excellent read, Hope for Today's Families. I'm going to be back with more from Next Level Health in just a moment. Next Level Health is encouraging people all around the world to take their health to the next level and to know the God who gives the gift of good health. To make it possible for It Is Written to produce more resources like this, sharing hope and life with the world, please call 844-974-8836. That's 844-WRITTEN, or go to nextlevelhealth.life and click donate. Your support will make a world of difference to so many people. Call 844-WRITTEN or visit nextlevelhealth.life. Now that was a quote, wasn't it? It's not about love, it's about commitment. Even love can be bumpy at times because we're human. Commitment hangs in there through the turbulence that life can sometimes bring. So how do you have a healthy relationship with God? Let's think about this in terms of commitment. Many people get bumped out of their relationship with God because of tough times. But even if your life is expecting challenges, God is still God. You see, faith believes that God is still God. These are upside down. God has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. That's a promise. So what happens then when something bad happens in your life? Has God changed his mind? No, he's still with you. You pray for someone to get well, and they don't. Is God now unfaithful? No, he's still God. There are times we can't understand God's working, and so we trust in him. We believe by faith that the God who has been faithful is still faithful. That's faith. In one interesting Bible story, Jesus told his disciples they were to go to the other side of the lake. But while their boat was out on the Sea of Galilee, a terrible storm came up. The disciples did all they could to keep the boat from sinking, but they feared they were going to lose their battle. While had been sleeping in the back of the boat. They woke him up and they said, Master, don't you care that we're about to perish? Mark 4:39 and 40 says, Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? Why in the world would Jesus suggest they have no faith? Because they tried to save themselves from drowning? Well, Jesus had said to them, let us cross over to the other side. So that meant they were going to the other side of the lake. Jesus had spoken. They just needed to believe him. There came a time when it didn't look like they were going to get across that lake. But nothing could undo the words of Jesus, not even appearances. And Jesus calmed the storm. The howling gales quickly subsided. The roiling sea settled. The rain clouds parted. Christ was with them. And that's all they needed to know. Is Jesus with you? Yes, he is. Do you trust him even when things look shaky? You may. And you can trust God without wavering because God is committed to you. John 3:16, said to be the best known verse in the Bible. For God so loved that he gave his own Son. Believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. When Jesus died on the cross, he was telling the human race, I'm committed to you. He assured you on that cross that he made up his mind for you. He died for you, died to give you a new life. You can enjoy a healthy relationship with him by believing him and asking him to do his will in your life. You ask him to do so, and he will. Hey, thanks for joining us on Next Level Health. One more presentation. How do you enhance your emotional health? We'll find that out next time. From all of our team here at It Is Written, we're looking forward to seeing you again next time on Next Level Health.